Welcome to the Heal, Thrive, Dream podcast, where trauma survivors become healthy thrivers. Each month, we'll feature a theme in the trauma recovery and empowerment field. To promote your recovery, healing, and learning how to build dreams, here's your host, Karen Robinson, transformational coach and therapist.
Hi, welcome to the Heal, Thrive, Dream podcast. Thank you for being here. Today, our guest is Heather. Heather is a multimedia, abstract artist and writer. An intuitive artist and painter, Heather interprets people, places, and experiences through color, a condition known as synesthesia. Like an enormous box of crayons, her gift operates by categorizing through intricate but specific shades of color. While this condition enables her to experience color, she responds to these encounters with people, things, emotions, and spaces by understanding the particular shade of experience that a person dwells in. She uses her gift to detect the most healing color for them to remedy their wounds. Guided by the chakra system and inspired by spirituality and the mysteries of the universe, Heather transforms these vibrant energies into captivating paintings that uplift, inspire, and ultimately heal. That's an impressive little bio there, Heather. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
That's the first time I've read a bio like that. So, of course, I want to start off with how do I say this word again? The synthesis? Synesthesia.
Yeah.
Say it one more time.
Synesthesia.
Okay, you got to tell us more about that because this is the first time I'm hearing about it.
It's not very well, widely. Synesthesia is something that happens when your brain takes in information and then crosses it. So when I take in a smell, a scent, a taste, a word or music, my brain senses sort of get crossed. And in my mind's eye, I see it as a color, as a shape. When I listen to music, I see choreography in my brain. So it's a condition that happens. Only about 4% of the population have something like it. There are over 80 different kinds of synesthesia, like sound to color synesthesia. There's days of the week synesthesia. There's all different kinds of ways that people take in information and then process it through another sense.
It's so cool. When did you first realize that you had this kind of gift?
So I think I grew up all along thinking that everybody did this, that everybody had it. When I was a little kid, I would sit in my room and listen to music and draw what I saw the music as, or, driving down the road, listening to music in my parents' car and seeing colors and shapes and dancers in my mind. And it really wasn't until the last year that I discovered what it was through another artist who said, I have synesthesia, I have sound to color, it's called chromesthesia, I think, sound to color synesthesia. So when she hears music, she paints what she sees. And I kind of thought, wait a minute, I feel like I do that too. What is that? And then started to dig into it and then discovered that I have many forms of it. And I've been using it my whole life. I just didn't know what it was called.
And no one in your circle, your parents, your teachers, none of them caught on to this?
No. And you know what? I was a really quiet, shy kid. So I don't think I ever even told anybody about it. It was just kind of something that I experienced and just assumed that everybody did. I just assumed that.
That's wild. That is so wild to me.
Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah. Well, the other artist that you were talking about, is she also someone who was a quiet kid? Do you know her story at all?
I know a little bit of her story. Her name is Sarah Craning, and I think she sort of tried to talk about it, and I don't know that it was shut down or it just wasn't really explored. And so she sort of kind of shut it down for a little bit and then came back into it as she got older too. I think it's one of those things that a lot of creatives experience, musicians and artists. And so, a lot of times we shut those gifts down early on too. And so, it wasn't until I was close to my 40s that I started to kind of explore art again. And that's when it kind of started to billow out a bit more.
Yeah, I asked the question about the quiet child because I wonder if that's something common with healers in general or people that are really intuitive is my guess is that they tend to be a little more on the quiet side because it's a lot to take in. It's a lot to take in. And I definitely was described as a quiet child a lot of my life. And then I ended up being an introvert, 50% extrovert, 50%, so it's an ambivert type thing. So I think I can weave in and out. But the quiet part of me is very intuitive and very healing.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting. Okay, so you were a late bloomer with your talent then.
Very much so.
Meaning, a late bloomer meaning leaning into it. It was there, but you're leaning into it. And I love for people on YouTube, we can see all of her paints in the background. I love that. So you're really leaning in.
Really leaning in, yeah. My spiritual teacher, she says that a lot of times our gifts show up when we're kids. That the things that we're naturally drawn to or that we are really interested in, there's a curiosity there, that's really where our gifts lie. That's really where our purpose and our interests are. And a lot of times as kids, we sort of intuitively are drawn to certain things because that's part of our story. It's part of our path. And then as we get older, we sort of shut it down or we set about on different paths to explore different things. And then a lot of us sort of experience this either a breakdown or a breakthrough. And we're like, we need to do something different. And that's sort of what it was for me. I was really had a great job, had a very lucrative career as an HR manager, and then, started to just feel super tired, and I just couldn't muster the energy to get up each day and drive to the office to do HR work. It just wasn't fulfilling anymore. And then kind of said, okay, well, let's talk about what I was interested in as a kid. What was it? And for me, it was always color, drawing, painting, art. It was like that. Those things existed around me as a little kid and then came sort of trickling back in as I got older. And so I was 38, 39 when I started painting again. And I've been doing that now for the last 5 or 6 years. So I really was a late bloomer. If when it comes to like actually acknowledging what had sort of been around me the whole time.
Okay. Does this mean you no longer do HR work? Are you a full-time artist now?
Full-time artist.
Awesome. Are you a starving artist or has it become a stable career for you?
Yeah.
Or in between them?
It's sort of in between. I think it's one of those things where, I'm still trying to kind of figure out what does life look like. I spent 25 years in corporate HR, and so I've only spent 5 or 6 years on the full-time artist role. So I still feel like I'm in kindergarten when it comes to owning and operating an art business.
Yeah. Yeah, I do have a client who's made this pivot, and she's only a few months into it. And she's so frustrated that she's, not, a highly successful artist at this point. I'm like, well, wait a minute. It's still a new endeavor for you.
Yeah.
You were working full time with the government just a short period ago. So yeah, it does take time, especially being an entrepreneur and all the things that comes with that. It sounds a lot easier than what it actually is my experience. I think I'm fairly new too, being an entrepreneur. I was working for the government for 17 years, and then I've been a therapist for 25. A lot of it was with companies and agencies or the government. So being on my own, it's been different.
Yeah, it's not a faint of heart. There's a lot that goes into the day to day. Yeah.
But one of my favorite parts is having my own schedule. Are you enjoying that piece?
I do enjoy that piece. Yeah, like I think that freedom that it offers is really supportive for a sensitive spirit. I think growing up around so much, you have to be here at 8, you can't leave until 5. It feels so restrictive. And what I'm learning about myself as I get older and as I just kind of listen to my intuition more as I sort of move through life is that the things that make me feel restrictive or tight are not for me. But the things that make me feel a bit more open and free are where I really want to be. Those are the things that I try to follow that feeling because that makes me feel the most cared for, I think, as a spiritual person being a human.
Yeah, I know we talked about before recording, we talked about a couple of things I want to update the audience on is Heather is not she doesn't identify as a trauma survivor, but does identify as someone who can be a healer, through her artwork, her poetry, and just her nature. She's intuitive. Learning and working with the chakras for people can be very healing as well. How did you get involved in the chakra system, or is that part of your gift as well? Can you talk about that?
Yeah, for sure. Spirituality, the chakras, all of that was very interesting to me throughout my childhood, teenage years. I was that kind of, my parents said I was born in the wrong time. I probably should have been like a flower child, in the 60s or something. I was really into that kind of thing. It was probably as soon as I started to notice that I was able to see color around people and intuitively see people through color that I instantly connected the color that I saw to the chakra system. And that tells me a lot about sort of where people are dwelling in their bodies. And because the chakras are associated with the physical, spiritual, or emotional energy centers of the body, that gave me a lot of activity points. And I kind of said, oh, well, I see green around you. And so green's about the heart. So let's look at that. Let's talk about the heart. What color do I see and what's it telling me about you there? So that was kind of an interesting connector. Other synesthetes, people who have synesthesia, don't associate color that way. So they just kind of see the color and then they're like, okay, well, that's green. But for me, I associate it with the spiritual side of things because I believe that everything has meaning. I think everything has some sort of function or purpose in there. And so that's sort of how it came together.
Very cool. This might be on the spot. We talked about this is an organic show, so yeah. I don't pre-plan my questions. So anything I ask you that feels uncomfortable or not something you want to do, just say that. It's okay.
Sure.
I want to be flexible. But are you comfortable saying what color you're seeing with me, talking with me?
Yeah, sure.
I'm comfortable if you are.
Yeah, absolutely. So I sort of see you in like a yellow-green color. So yellow is associated with the the solar plexus chakra, which is sort of right around our belly button. And green is associated with the heart. So for me, when I see the yellow-green, it sort of tells me that that you might dwell in the space of the heart, and in the space of identity. So it's about helping to sort of connect between how you want to be seen, how you want people to see you, but then also moving into this place where there's sort of unconditional love and acceptance for who you are, regardless of what other people think. So it's sort of dwelling in that space of loving yourself just exactly as you are in this moment.
Well, I'm so glad that I asked.
Does that resonate with you at all? Do you feel?
Yeah, I love that. I definitely have been working on self-love for a while. It's been part of my message for others to take that on because I'm a survivor and the people I work with are survivors. So it's been really hard to do. I tell people as kids, we have these core beliefs based on our experiences. So if you're someone who's been abused at all, you're kind of stuck with this belief that, well, since good things happen to good people and bad things happen to bad people, I must be bad if this is happening. And we internalize it and our behaviors show that. So the fact that you can see that is like, oh my gosh, all these healing things I do, something's working, yay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I'm also very spiritual and I really think that being a spiritual person is super healing too,
For
and
sure.
using those gifts.
For sure.
Yeah.
Can I also share with you? So the green and the yellow and sort of where they dwell in the, so the heart is the bridge between the physical body and the spiritual body. And so when I see somebody who's sort of in that heart space, the colors that are going to be the most supportive for you will be some of the upper chakra colors. So I don't know if you like to wear purple or violet or indigo or white, but those colors will be especially supportive in when you're moving through that healing space to offer you reminders that you're connected to a higher power, that you're deeply loved, that you have a strong inner knowing and intuition, and that you're able to connect to a higher power to receive healing and love and support as you sort of move through those moments or those feelings that come up.
That's very cool. My mom's favorite color was purple, so I do have a few things of her. So that's very nice. It's actually very comforting.
Yeah,
So thank you.
that's awesome. Mm.
Yeah. And so how do you share your gifts with others? Like, do you do one-on-one sessions? Do you have courses, workshops? What does your work with others look like?
Mm-hmm. The primary way that I really like to work with people one-on-one is through spirit portrait paintings. And in that way, sort of what we did here, but at a deeper level, I will sit with somebody's picture or energy and really move through all their chakras and sort of read where they are. So I'll look for what color do I see for each of the chakras and what symbols or messages are coming through for each one. And then I kind of sort of say, well, here's the primary place where you dwell, and then here's the color that will be most supportive. So there are a couple of spirit portrait examples behind me here, but I'll do an individual painting for somebody, write down what messages come through, and then we hop on a Zoom call and talk about it and kind of say, where I see you, here's what your colors are, here's your painting, and here's what it's telling me about how it will be supportive for you. And the conversations are intimate and really, I think, just as healing for the person that's receiving the painting as it is for me to be able to kind of share those messages and a lot of times leave somebody with, my goal is always to leave somebody with messages that are uplifting and inspiring for them so that they leave going, okay, I've got some tips, I've got some tools. And then I also get this painting I can hang in my room that will minister to me on a daily basis. And I love doing that for them.
Yeah, I feel that your gift is so impactful for people. Yeah, that's, when I was asked to have you on my show, I was a yes, which is odd because I tend to have, survivors. And, and every once in a while there is someone who isn't, but the past couple of years has mostly been survivors. But I think do you believe in past lives? Let me ask that.
I do, yeah.
Yeah, okay. I thought so when you talked about when your parents were, said you're born in the wrong time.
I was probably living in time too.
Yeah. So that was also a hard concept for me too. But I also do some energy work. I'm in a certification program right now. So learning about the chakras and stuff. And so, my coaches, trainers, when they talked about it with me, at first, I was through a workshop with a group of people. I was I got a lot of fear in me. Like, I didn't want to be around thousands of years ago and tortured or hurt in some way. I didn't want that. And now that I understand that it's been part of my healing journey as a healer too, I think it's more beautiful, right?
Yeah.
So I wanted to share that.
I love that.
Okay, so do you offer any classes or workshops at this point, or is it just not just, but do you do one-on-one only?
No, I do also do workshops too, mostly local in-person workshops for therapeutic art. I'm trying to find a way to bring that to the virtual space too, but it's really nice to be able to work in person with somebody. But I like to use, art is art is healing, right? So there's art therapy or therapeutic art that we can use. So a lot of the stuff that I will do in person is related to helping people process their feelings and emotions through art and color, and then to be able to learn what those colors mean for them or what the symbols or shapes that they create might be telling them and all of that.
Yeah. Are you comfortable with saying a little more on how this is healing to someone who's experienced trauma? Like, have any of your clients identified as being survivors?
Oh, that's a good question. I think in some ways, yes, they might align with that identity a little bit. I think for the most part, when I'm doing a painting for somebody and we're talking about where they dwell, there's often pain associated in that area. So, for example, I have a client who is going through cancer, cancer of the bladder, and the bladder sits at the sacral chakra area. So when I spoke to her, we sort of talked about, okay, here are some of the things that you might be challenged with if you're dwelling in that space. Lack of boundaries, not feeling like you're able to creatively express yourself, not feeling like you're able to emotionally connect with people or even just feel connected to your own emotions about things and to be able to express it, carrying the weight of the world or carrying just the weight of responsibility around there. So we'll talk a little bit about those things and then we'll say, okay, so what are your practices around being able to express yourself? Are you journaling? Are you writing? Do you meditate? Do you have a spiritual practice that you work in? And so we sort of talk about, here's where you might be. Some of the things that you might be struggling with are this, and then what are you doing or what can we help you do to sort of lift you up out of that? And so we have those conversations and I'll create a painting for them and kind of say, well, here's what I see for you in the painting. Does this symbol resonate with you or does this message resonate with you? And so in that way, I think they leave that conversation with more insight about just even their own emotions, how color has supported them, or just generally how they're kind of moving through life and how they can choose to move through life differently.
People. What about grief? Have you worked with people actively grieving and what's that been like?
Yes, a lot recently. So much so that I've been thinking about putting together some therapeutic workshops around art and grief because there are a lot of people who are experiencing grief right now. And I sort of see people in the grief space as like a blue-gray color. And that to me sort of tells me that they're in a place of feeling there's like a lack, right? Because when we're grieving, we've often lost someone. So there's a lack of something there. But with the blue-gray, it's also about not being able to communicate or not feeling like you're able to communicate the feeling of grief or just how deep the grief is. And everybody goes through grief. And so a lot of people, I think, struggle with how do they express their grief when it seems like we have expectations around how we're supposed to grieve. And so those folks, for a lot of them, colors like orange or yellow are going to be especially uplifting for them because they're more energizing. They offer optimism. They offer confidence and courage. And so it sort of helps them lift up out of that. But I think that there's more that we can do in the therapeutic art space to help people with grief. And I have seen that more and more lately.
Okay. Well, as you know, podcasts live forever. So as you develop and offer programs like that, let me know so I can add the links to the show notes. So when people in the future are listening, they know, oh, I'm grieving right now. This is my person. It could be so helpful to me.
Yeah.
I think that's beautiful. All right. Well, what else do you want to talk about? Like, what else do you feel? Are you getting any downloads? Like, oh, I really should share this. Because remember, the people listening are survivors. They could be grieving a loss. People with pain. I think the pain is probably the common denominator. Are you having any messages that you want to say to that person that maybe is suffering right now?
Mm-hmm. One, I would just say you're not alone in your pain, and you're not alone in general. And I think there are so many people out in the world like me, like you, who are here to help and are here to offer healing in some way and to be of service in some way, and to reach out to people and to look for the people who have their hand out to help you, to pull you into a safe space and to pull you into a place where healing is possible. And I think that's the thing that's most important to me recently is I'm learning about the connection between physical pain and the spiritual body, and how you can sort of associate pain in the body with a spiritual dissatisfaction, I guess. So like if you have high blood pressure, that's associated with anger. And so, if you look at, well, what's the root of my anger? Then healing is possible in the heart. And so I think it's important to sort of pay attention to how you really feel about something and to find different ways to create space to just feel the feelings. And I know that probably sounds really simple, but I think we spend a lot of our lives running from how we actually feel about something, and just finding time to get quiet and to connect with yourself and knowing that healing is possible for just about all of us. I think when we get really clear about how we feel about it.
Yeah, you're right. In therapy, we call that word avoidance when we're trying not to feel.
Yeah.
And it is a big deal, the avoidance, because the pain of the feelings seems to be so overwhelming. It's why people turn to drugs or alcohol,
Yeah.
or, emotionally eat or gamble or sex. Like we will do almost anything to not feel, especially for those of us who have a lot of pain from, past wins.
Mm-hmm.
And it is a simple solution to just allow yourself to feel, but it's so interesting that people will self-destruct in order not to do it. Yeah. And the simple of just being and feeling, if people could allow themselves, I want to say that gift of pain, sounds a terrible way to put it, but they actually will move through the pain more quickly and just start to feel better.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think there's like the pain that you're feeling that you're avoiding by going into another form of pain. And it's there's pain on both sides,
Right.
choose the pain that's going to help you move through it and then be able to find the healing. And my spiritual teacher always says, like, you have to excavate the wound, right? You have to get all the pus and the gross. You got to get all that out. It's gross. It's nasty. You don't want to do it. You don't want to look at it. I'd rather not. But as soon as you clear it out, then it can start to heal. And so I think for me, that's the thing. Whether you choose whatever form of art you choose, there's healing in it. I think that beauty and just creating something with your hands, whether it's journaling, making music, singing, dancing, whatever it is, there's something in there that allows you to connect to a deeper aspect of your spirit that will open you up to the possibility of healing. But it's there for you.
Your teacher's example of the wound is one I use all the time.
Really?
Because our emotional hurts, it's like having a huge wound in your gut, and avoiding it just isn't gonna heal it. You gotta go into surgery, let them clean everything out, and it hurts. You gotta dig in there.
Yeah.
But then they can, once it's clean, and I kind of describe it too as like the cleansing, the water, and then, maybe there's some ointment, and then there's stitches, right?
Yeah.
And then that scar from the stitches is that beautiful reminder that you've survived some really hard things, but now you're a survivor and you're healing. And there's more hope than that. And then they're just walking around with this big gaping wound, right?
Yeah.
More hope and believing that you're surviving things.
That's beautiful. I love that.
Well, it's been really wonderful having you here with us today. Can you share a website or a way, and I will have it in the show notes too, but what's the best way for people to reach out to you if they resonate with your work?
Sure. I love to connect with people on Instagram. I'm at Heather Eck Artist there. And then my website, I've got a couple freebies out there for folks to learn more about color or to even book a 15-minute color discovery session with me. That's all free. And that's at heathereck.com/thank you.
Yeah, that's beautiful too. But thank you in your gift. That's beautiful.
Thank you.
I like that a lot. All right, Heather, it's been a joy. Please stay in touch, and I appreciate you.
I appreciate you. Thank you so much for having me this morning.
My pleasure.
Thank you for listening in today. Please join us next week, same day and time. Also, I would love for you to check out my website, healthrivedream.com.